Hey everybody, how you guys doing? Of course, it's lunchtime and I got started a little bit late today. I'm testing out a couple new things. I got a brand new Yeti mic here, which is actually a really good product. I'm gonna bring it a little bit closer so that you guys can hear me a little bit better. Um, and today I have on the show with me Paul Sutliff. And Paul is actually a jihadi expert, federally recognized jihadi expert. And you know how we are, how we do here. We want to hear all sides of a conversation. So basically, I'm bringing him on because we want to hear his side of the conversation, and we want to be able to have that two-way conversation going with Paul. All right, so I'm going to be back in just a moment, giving you guys enough time to share this with your friends, your relatives, everyone, your favorite groups, and let's get everything going. All right, so give us just a few minutes, and we'll be back with Paul Sutliff. All right, thanks. Okay, so today we are here with Paul Sutliff, and he's a federally recognized jihadi expert. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk to him today about his views, his point of views on different things, and it's going to be a pretty controversial topic. I'll tell you guys that it's going to be one that we'll see how we can have this two-way conversation going, and I'm pretty sure that you guys are going to have a lot to chime in about. Definitely use the comment section. Let's be respectful, and let's just be respectful in your comments. All right. So let's go ahead and bring Paul in. Hey Paul, how are you? Whoops, there you go.
On civilization jihad. I am an expert on civilization jihad, or the other term
civilization.
It is Islamization. Civilization jihad is the term created by the Muslim Brotherhood to describe their war here in America. Jihad is the term for war against non-Muslims. According to them, using their definitions, I go straight to Sharia to get that definition. You can get it you can pick up your copy in English of Sharia in a book called Reliance of the Traveler. She even got their stamp of approval on it. So that's I've had to write an affidavit for the federal courts, and it was accepted uncontested. So that's where I get the federally recognized part. And my expertise lies in observing and documenting the Muslim Brotherhood's actions here in the United States of America and in Canada. And I had a chance to go to Europe and observe what was happening from the great hijra. Hijra is the word for migration in Arabic. And I got to see the hijra from say that the documents, in the Quran, they talk about hijra, and they'll say the Islam starts at the hijra. Well, what they're talking about there is the migration from Mecca to a place called Yathrib, which is now called Medina. So in the Quran, though, they talk about you have to have the hijra before jihad. So there's several verses, there's about 7 different verses that actually mention this. And they'll say the hijra and, for the purposes of jihad is what they're basically saying. So when you have a hijra, which again, it's just the Arabic word for migration. This is what happened in Europe. So I went on a fact-finding expedition into Europe, and I got to join an incredible team doing this. It was we saw things and encountered people, and it was just mind-blowing. It's what we're experiencing here. We're about 40, 50, I hope forever behind what Europe is experiencing today.
So what exactly are they experiencing that's different than here?
They are implementing Sharia in many European countries currently. For example, in the UK, they have Sharia courts. So women who are choosing to not follow the law of the land, basically, and go to the Sharia courts are not getting their rights, because a woman in a Sharia court she only has half the rights of a man. Her testimony is only considered half of a man. So no matter what she says, she could say she was raped or anything in this respect, but nothing will be accepted. Now, the Sharia courts there generally are only allowed for purposes of domestic issues. So if a woman has been abused, physically, beaten, whatever reason, the Sharia courts turn the women back to their homes. This has been shown in several documentaries over the past 5 to 10 years. It's mind-numbing. In fact, they've actually gone back, redone, and tested the same thing over again and found out that's exactly what's happening. The mosques there are openly encouraging jihad. I'm not saying that's not happening here, but that's one of the things that they're finding. And it's shocking. There are certain mosques, there was a large number of mosques that were shut down this year in Germany due to that. The majority of those were Salafi mosques. And I was outside of a few of those places when we were being shown the area, and we went to Paris first when I got to Europe. That we went through Paris. That was our big stop. We then went to Berlin, and then we followed up. Our last stop was in Sweden's, and that was just incredible. We saw what they meant by they had said there was only men coming in the majority men, vast majority of men, and the vast majority from Africa. And it was incredible. You see the pictures when you're looking at news articles and stuff like that, but it's something else to really see it. And there were, I think I may have seen one woman in all of what I saw, of the vast majority of migrants that I saw. It was kind of shocking. Now, they were still intense. What France was doing was attempting to hide them. They would come through and they would clean up an entire area. I mean, they'd do it overnight. They would put up huge fencing where they were to keep them from going back. and they would move them to another area or just leave their leave their tents and garbage on the side. So it's a fight over there to keep. And then there's things happening there in respect to Islamization and moving in. In France, they're not allowed to, sorry, I should say they're allowed to apply for, quote, asylum or immigration, and they have certain things they're supposed to meet. When we met with the guy in charge of refugees and asylum, and I asked him this question: so what happens if they don't meet those standards? Now, this is the difference between Europe as a whole and the United States of America. What he said was, we can't deport. I started laughing. I said, are you a country or are you a state? And he would not answer the question. And shortly thereafter, we had to leave because I'd asked the question that really revealed that they had no power, because in submission to the European Union, they have given up many of their rights. And it was shocking to hear. So they have kept people who are sexually molesting them, their women, for that reason. I want you to think about that.
So what is your position on that, on the immigration into Europe and also the immigration into the United States?
I would say it's illegal. Immigration is still illegal, and it's dangerous. Anybody who decides to enter a country en masse, any group of people, doesn't matter who you are, you decide to enter a country en masse. We're talking not 100 people, not 1,000 people. Right now, we're talking millions. If you enter a country en masse, that's an invasion. All right. And in this case, we're talking about millions of people that come from a group of people who hold totally different social norms than the average European. This is one of the things that they are discovering over there. It's what my next book is called. My next book is all about. My next book is called The Cancer of Civilization Jihad, and it specifically looks at those social norms that are incredibly different. Yes, it is millions. In fact, they're having sometimes today, I believe it was this past week, that they were counting a couple hundred attempting to cross the French, to cross from France to England. About a couple hundred a day is that what they were counting. Now that adds up. Now this is a lower number than it was last year. In 2015, the number was in the millions that entered into Europe. The claim was that many of these were coming from Syria. What they discovered is that's not true. In Sweden, they have rules about, they were letting in Syrians just nonstop. What I mean, what they actually did is if you came to the border and you said, I'm from Syria, you could be purple, pink, blue, yellow, orange, whatever color. And I mean, you would have no identification documents on you. And as long as you said you were from Syria, they made you a citizen of Sweden immediately.
Yeah, but you know what? But okay, so using that same scenario, I mean, we do pretty much the same thing here in the United States.
No, we don't. We have vetting requirements. Okay, we have vetting requirements that do to check you out, and this is why even FBI Director Comey testified before Congress that accepting people who say they are from Syria is dangerous because we cannot vet them.
Right. I'm not necessarily saying from Syria, but if we say that a person is coming from, let's say, for example, pretty much most European countries, if they're coming from England or if they're coming from Canada, whatever, we don't turn them away as we do, but we don't turn them away as we do people coming from Mexico or Haiti or.
In fact, Hillary tried to let somebody in during her time as Secretary of State. She had been denied access. He had been denied access. Now, he would be considered Caucasian. He was denied access due to his affiliations and endorsement of killing our men.
Well, see, that's different, though, because now what you're saying is
They
because
vet him. That's what I'm getting at. He's from Europe. They're vetting him. Everybody that comes to the United States that is coming for the purpose of migration is vetted. In fact, many of those who decide to come to visit go through a vetting process because they have to get a visa sometimes. There are only
right,
limited amounts of countries that do not have that.
right. But what I'm saying is, they do have a vetting.
If they're coming for non-migration purposes.
Well, they do have a process, yes, but it's more stringent for some than for others. A person, I mean, like for example, we let in so many people from Bosnia just because they said, "Oh, we're oppressed," but then we had a lot of people from Haiti and from other places that were saying, "Oh, we're oppressed," and we said, "Oh, well, too bad, go back."
Yeah, I'll go
So,
through if you're saying for the oppressed part, you've got to go back to the concept of refugee status.
mhm.
Everyone going through refugee, regardless of what country they come from, that would be the refugee status you're talking about, has to go through a vetting process. Every individual.
So again, why is it that we're allowing refugees from Bosnia, from different parts of Russia, and these things? And when they come here, we as a government give them money, set them up, and even from Cuba,
I would
the government set them up.
I don't think we should be giving them anybody money. What's happening here? That's what my affidavit was all about. By the way,
Mhm.
is the refugees coming here, and it was particularly addressing the dangers of unvetted Syrians coming here. Now, what you'll find out is that the refugees, in order to become a refugee, you have to be fearful of where you lived. You can't
Right.
you can't you have to have a fear of death, that you will be persecuted, you will suffer on for some various reasons. It could be a fear of religious persecution. It can be fear of a political persecution, all those things. The issue is now that we have been accepting, I'm going to pick on the Syrian migration. None of them feared political persecution when they came here. Now, how do I know that? There were almost all of them who came here were men, first of all. They were all with maybe, it would be under 100 of all those who came claiming to be Syrians. Under 100
Mhm.
were women. On top of that, under all of that, there was only, I believe, one allowed into the country who was Christian during this time period. So they were specific. They were only allowing Sunni Muslims. Now, this is where it gets interesting. These people feared no oppression, feared no political anything. They feared no persecution because they were Sunnis. And that's the issue. So if you don't have that fear, you're not legally, under our laws, you are not legally a refugee. Under our laws, that were subverted during this time period. Now, that's concern. UN has a similar definition to us of refugee. However, they change that. They change that definition constantly to suit their own purposes in the moment. That's problematic. Here in the United States, the refugee program used to claim that it was fully funded, that it was fully financed. And I'm talking about under Obama, and you keep going back and keep going back. Oh, you can go back to Ronald Reagan when it first started. Now, if you read all the stuff that they have to do and what they do as far as coming to the United States, who finances the refugee program? Basically, it's your state, believe it or not your federal government. Your federal government does very little to finance the refugee program. It helps them get here. It states it's going to finance them. Okay, now catch this. This is when they're financed. They are financed only while they are under the status of refugee. You know how long that status lasts?
How long?
Year. 1 year. That's it. It does not pay for their housing.
Well, but that's the thing. We have so many that we give money. There's so many groups that get money from the government in order to get, as they would say, set up in American society, but yet others aren't. So my question to you is, why is it okay for one group of refugees to be to get these things and another group of refugees not to, or even
Right now,
or even hold on, or even
I'm for America's first. Let me put it that way.
but
I think
even so,
I'm
why is
not
it? But wait,
putting one
Paul,
putting an unvetted group against another. Now
Paul.
that's something to think about.
But hold on. But even so, why is it then? Why is it that if a person, again, and I'll use Haiti as an example because I live in South Florida and we get a lot of people that come well, now they haven't been that many, but before they were coming up on by the boatload, and they would say, oh, if I go back, I'm going to be killed, and it was proven that they would be killed if they
Yes,
go back.
correct.
And our government would just say, oh, go back, we don't care. But then a group comes over from Europe and go, oh, if I go back, I'm going to be killed. And they say, oh my God, come on in. We don't want
They
that to happen. Let's go ahead and give you money.
I don't, there's a difference between refugee status and immigration status. What you're talking about is two different things.
No, because both of them came here with the same. Both of them came here with the same thing. They came,
Europeans that came here
but
under
but
the
but they both came here with the same thing: religious persecution,
name
all
one.
these different things, and also a fear of their life. They
Okay,
both came with a fear of their life.
came here in fear of your life from Europe.
I'm sorry.
Name a group that came here from Europe fearing
Well,
regulation.
this is what people always say. People always say, "Oh, if I go back, my country, like or whatever." But the thing is, people, when we get people coming in here from different countries, we don't. Immigration is not the same across the board. That's the issue. We would like to think that everyone is vetted the same across the board, but honestly, it's not. It's not the same.
We just showed that recently. We had an attack where a gentleman, this was down in Texas, one of the recent attacks in Texas, where a gentleman came here unvetted thanks to what they call chain migration. His
Mhm.
father lived in the country. The man had definite affiliations with terrorist entities, but because his father, he was from Yemen, his
Mhm.
father was from Yemen, he was not vetted. Now, he was considered an American citizen because, again, his father, who he really had not seen except for over the phone or through the internet, had never interacted with him. He comes here, I believe, young teens,
Mhm.
and goes and he does eventually grow into a terrorist and does an attack here in the United States. But if the United States had done what we're asking them to do, is to vet everyone coming here into for the purposes of migration, everyone,
Mhm.
um, that would never have happened. His sisters and I don't know. I think he had three sisters. I don't know about brothers, but they all came based on the fact that, and the mother, who was again a wife, never having been to America, she
Mhm.
got a free pass also. Nobody
Okay,
vetted.
so okay, so you mentioned he has three sisters. Did they also commit crimes since they've been here or no?
Again, I'm talking about the affiliations of one person. I'm not talking about the entire family. I'm saying that
Mhm.
none of them were vetted. That's the issue. And when you think about who lives next door to you, I don't know, purple, black, yellow, orange, God knows what other color there are, but it doesn't matter the color. It matters that if they're going to come in and live next door to you from some other place, shouldn't the State Department have a duty for shouldn't the refugee? I mean, shouldn't our federal government, let's put it that way, shouldn't our federal government have the responsibility to protect us? That's one of the jobs of that the Constitution gives us. In protecting us, they should be vetting people before they come here.
Well, and okay, and let's take that to another level. Let's say, for example, a person that lives in North Dakota. A person in North Dakota goes, well, wait a second. You know what? A lot of those people that live in Chicago or Miami or LA, those people are very violent. We should vet them before they come into North Dakota because we don't have the crime that they have.
Okay,
Also,
you're talking
maybe
about the difference between a nation and a state, and you
what,
cannot do that. But we do have
see, that's
government
what I'm saying, though.
pretty much idiots and are saying things like that. Like my idiot governor, we call him King Cuomo. He's telling people if they go to another state that they have to go into quarantine.
But
So
but okay, so let's touch on that then, because now we're talking about the coronavirus. So do you think he's handling the situation correctly, or no?
I think that many of our governors are being idiots and using unscientific claims to
Mhm.
hold us in submission. Their goal is to keep us shut down until after the election. That's why these things are not happening. That is their goal. They want the entire system to be a mail-in ballot, which has been proven to be fraud, rampant with fraud. Okay, you
Mhm.
can actually do a quick Google search of mail-in ballots, fraud. You can go back to the last four elections. At least the last four elections where thousands of military ballots were never counted. Thousands upon thousands military ballots. This happens all the way back, even through George. It might be 6 or 7 election cycles, maybe even more, where
Okay.
their ballots are not counted because they're mailed in and they get there too late. Um,
All
what's
right. So let's
issue?
just say then. Okay. So do you think the president is handling the coronavirus epidemic properly?
I think he was highly deceived to begin with. We have a guy, Dr. Fauci, who comes from who came and warned the president. He lied to him, publicly deceived, and it's a public deceit. And he
Mhm.
deceived him about when the virus hit. He deceived him about when people came to the United States with this virus. We now know that they're 3, 4, and 5 months behind with the actual truth of it, and they knew it when they came here. We know that Dr. Fauci told everybody that wearing masks would not protect you from the coronavirus if you wore it yourself and you were healthy. We know that he's told us that. We know that he said this even before the scare. We know that up until, let's see, when they decided people should wear masks, I think that was really between May and June.
Mhm.
Decided to tell people to wear masks. Up until that date, CDC was telling people no healthy people should wear masks. Number one reason, it is unhealthy. It lowers your oxygen levels. It has you rebreathing in CO2, which again is unhealthy. Then you're also breathing in the bacteria that you just breathed out, which doubles your exposure to whatever bacteria you were receiving, that you were exposed, getting rid of. I mean, your body was getting rid of it. Now it's accepting it back in. So there's a number of issues here. The coronavirus, there is absolutely no. You can read these little masks. Look at the boxes where you get your mask from, or if you make one, it's even worse. But if you read the back of these boxes where you get these little masks from that people are telling you to wear, majority, by the way, made in China, which is incredibly stupid for anybody to buy one of them. I think it's hilarious. So you want to buy, when you read these boxes, they say it does not protect you from the coronavirus. The purpose of a mask is only for the unhealthy person to not spread it. Now, the question is, does social distancing work? Well, if the social distancing works, why do you need the mask? If the masks work, why do you need social distancing? Uh,
Mhm.
and this is the insanity. You go to now we have restaurants open. Here, you want to hear about a stupid rule. So they make you wear a mask to go in and sit down where you can take the mask off. That is pure insanity. There's no medical reason for it. And this is the stuff that I have been reading and studying because I try to talk on it and this stuff knowledgeably. You can go back and find studies. I went back and read one as far back as 2015. It's a whole 5 years ago. It's still considered legitimate in doctoral circles. So when you read these studies that say wearing a mask for healthy people is very unhealthy, it's extreme when it talks about it. The big thing that happens with wearing a mask, again, is lowering your oxygen levels. What is the Wuhan virus, COVID-19 virus all about? It is actually about free-flowing iron in the body, which
Mhm.
attaches to oxygen, depriving you of oxygen, creating that hypoxia. So when that happens, again, hypoxia is the lack of oxygen. Now, what are you doing to yourself when you put the masks on? You're actually creating hypoxia because you're limiting the amount of oxygen you can receive.
But
So there's actually no sense in this.
but question for you. So are you saying then that people should not wear the mask?
I'm saying it's unhealthy. It's biologically stupid, medically stupid.
But yet, but yet
You know,
doctors are doing it though. Yet you have doctors and nurses in hospitals that are wearing masks.
they wear masks when they go into surgery. The surgeon wears one because he cut into you to keep you from being, listen to what I'm saying, to keep you from being damaged. The reason why doctors' offices are wearing them in New York State, I'm not picking on any other place, but in New York State, because I've talked to my doctors, all right? The reason they are wearing them is they are ordered to by the state.
Yeah, but even before this, but even before this, you go into the hospital and doctors and nurses were wearing masks if they go into
masks
not just
in surgeries to protect
not just in surgery. Not just in surgery, because my dad was in the hospital back in November, and they were wearing masks in ICU and things like that. So so we're seeing them.
Again, it's to the person who is in ICU has a compromised immune system. A doctor may carry this, and you're talking about ICU. That's one of those extreme places. Their persons who are in ICU are suffering from damaged health systems.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that would be normal about a healthy person could damage a person with a compromised immune system. So that's the normal thing. You went anyplace else in the hospital, they weren't wearing masks, correct?
Right, exactly. But here's
that's the reasoning behind it. It's to protect. Now we're talking about protecting the person with a compromised immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Only them.
But how do we know the next person in Publix or Walmart doesn't have a compromised immune system? Everyone with the compromised immune system.
So let me ask you this: are you willing to wear a mask every day? Because at some point, maybe 1 in 1,000th chance, maybe 1 in 1 millionth chance that you would walk into somebody. Now, wait a minute. That might have a compromised immune system. Now, let's think about this. The person with a compromised immune system is generally doing one of two things that they're doing to take care of themselves. It is their job to take care of themselves, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we have to think about. So, first of all, if they have the compromised immune system, they will likely be wearing a mask to protect themselves if they can. They're generally not going to be wearing one of these insane homemade masks. They're not going to be wearing one of these Chinese-made masks because if you ever seen the videos of how they're made, you will be disgusted. You'll make sure you never wear one. All right, they're sitting on the floor, they're in the dirt, sitting on the mask with their butts, and then they put them in the packages.
Well, let me ask you. So what? Okay. So wait a second. So why do you think they have us out there wearing masks? Do you think it's just like you said,
tactic, nothing else?
I'm sorry?
It's a political scare tactic. There's no biological or medical reason for it.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure this out now. Bear with me for a second. So you're telling me then that all of these doctors, everyone around
doctor endorsing this that I can find. I cannot find a doctor who is not doing this for a political reason.
Okay, so let's go to some of the comments that we have here. Jennifer was saying that doctors are wearing masks. They wear masks all day.
They don't have a choice. She's right. They don't have a choice. They're politically ordered by their state. That's what I've been saying. And they do not have a choice. In order for them to have a doctor's office open, they have to wear a mask. They do not have a choice.
Okay, so what about now Julia's comment is that in 1918, they wore a mask and they survived the pandemic.
Again, 1918, we know a lot more than the people did then. What are we talking about? And it has to do with each particular thing we're talking about. The pandemic in 1918 was a highly communicable disease. All right. What I mean by that is somebody could breathe on you, somebody could touch you. The virus was incredibly communicable. All right. What we've
Mhm.
learned with coronavirus is that is not true. In fact, the big thing we've learned about coronavirus is that your percentage of survival is 99.98%. Okay. Now, you know how much you're able to survive the flu? 99.98%. Oh, it's actually slightly lower than COVID-19. It's in the hundreds
Okay.
difference.
So all right, let's go to some of the other comments first, and then I'll have my question for you. Okay, so Jennifer is also saying people don't wear masks. Um, People not wearing masks and no social distancing
There's nothing
are
to
the ones.
prove what she's saying is true. There's no studies to prove what she's saying is true.
Well, there's no study to prove anything because this is something that just came about
Yes. Okay.
recently.
So,
So
well,
really, there's no study one way or the
there are
other.
medical studies that prove that we have a cure, and that's what I'm looking at. I want to do I want to look at the medical studies that prove we have a cure. Now,
Well,
in
there's
my
no cure yet. That's the thing. There's no cure. Now, so Jennifer was also saying, yes, I will wear a mask if I'm around people. So that's that was her comment. But
Jennifer, would you wear a mask if there was no coronavirus and you were worried about catching the flu? Would you wear a mask then?
okay, so here's the thing. All right, so now let me go back to the questions, a few questions that I had. Um, One of them is, okay, so we saw the president in the beginning saying it's a hoax, it's not going to happen. I mean, it's not it's not serious. All these well, he did say that.
In the beginning,
I'm sorry.
did not say it was a hoax in the beginning. No, he did not.
There was video of him saying this at one of his rallies.
It's no, that has no. You've got misinformation. I'm sorry about that, but you have misinformation.
Let me go ahead and bring up that video while we're chatting. Okay, give me just a second.
Make sure you're
And
exactly right, and I'll go back and research it. But your information is wrong. The
all right.
information he initially received, and the reason why he called for the shutdown was when he heard about the coronavirus, the stuff he
Mhm.
was told by Dr. Fauci. He had the FBI and the CIA do research. They discovered it was created in a Wuhan virology lab. That was the reason for the shutdown. It told him this was a bioweapon, most likely, being sent across the world. At the same time, when these things were happening, there was incredible problems in Italy. And what we weren't told at that point was that the reason Italy was having problems is the majority of those people who were sick were from Wuhan that were working in their leather industry. So they actually brought Chinese in to work in their leather industry so they could give them lower wages. Now, the people who were getting these viruses in Italy, after we're talking about the Asians bringing it, it was then it went straight to the elderly population. Now, this is the other thing that was interesting. When the elderly population started to die off, again, we were all treating this entire thing as if it was, we were treating this entire thing as if the solution was to put people on ventilators. What ER doctors in New York City, the guy in charge of treating the entire COVID-19 in New York City, came out and said is that was wrong. It was a mistake that they made. They didn't understand the symptoms. The symptoms were exactly related to hypoxia. Instead, they had already what they had thought previously was it was damaging the lungs' ability to perform. They misinterpreted the symptoms. That's what they were.
All right, so let me go as they would say, let's go to the videotape. All right.
Let's see the date on this first.
This was
Now the Democrats
listen.
are politicizing the coronavirus. You know that.
Let's
Right?
see the date on this.
Wait, listen.
They're politicizing it. We did one of the great jobs. You say, how's President Trump doing? They go, oh, not good, not good. They have no clue. They don't have any clue. They can't even count their votes in Iowa. They can't even count. No, they can't. And this is their new hoax. But you know, we did something that's been pretty amazing. We're 15 people in this massive country. And because of the fact that we went early, we could have had a lot more than that. We will do everything in our power to keep the infection and those carrying the infection from entering our country. We have no choice. Whether it's the virus that we're talking about or many other public health threats, the Democrat policy of open borders is a direct threat to the health and well-being of all Americans. Now you see it.
Okay, so the part where he said that was a hoax, I'll go back to that.
Recent one. Yes, this was his recent rally. Yes.
No, it's not a recent rally. This video was actually posted February 29th, 2020.
Okay.
So this was a rally before February.
So again, the information he was getting, and again, the stuff that was coming out back then when we first got this information. I really want to go back and double check that, because people play with stuff, but I have to go back and double check that.
So you're saying this is fake news then?
Well, I know. I want to go back and double check, because I do get a lot of fake news. People call me and ask me to check it out, and sometimes I find stuff is fake.
This is from the New York Times. I mean,
the New York Times is known for lying to the people. You do know that, right? You can go Google, go to your Google machine and type in something as simple as New York Times caught lying. New York Times caught misinforming people.
Listen, right? I'll tell you something. All news stations lie to the people, because I mean they number one, they either spin it to make it more dramatic, or they talk about the information that they're given. But either way, and
it's what they allow the people to hear, the news that they allow the people to hear.
But going back to what we were saying, and let me put this keyboard back over here. So going back to what we were saying, it is crazy. It's like we're sitting here, hearing our president call something a hoax, and then only a couple months later turns around and say, "Oh well, you know, I was the best guy. I did it. I was the one who
I want you to think about what he did first. And it's the number one reason why we didn't have even close to the issue that they haven't had in Europe. The first couple things he did was he cut off travel to the United States from countries like China, countries where this began, which was China. Then he cut off travel to this country from places like Europe, who were not taking care of the issues. So Europe was cut off from traveling to here. Our citizens were not cut off. That's something to think about. I live in a place called Rochester, New York. Rochester, New York, one of our first cases came from New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's what brought it here. So we know that we're in the place
of New York City. Then,
what?
Maybe you guys should have cut off New York City.
Well, there's an actual movement in New York State to cut New York City off as its own state. There's an actual. I think it's a great idea, but it can never happen because it requires a constitutional amendment.
So you would have New York City as a state by itself, and then upstate New York as another state by itself.
Well, the rest of New York. I mean, New York State is huge. New York City is.
I lived in Brooklyn. But you ask anyone from New York City, and New York City is the entire state, pretty much.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly.
But
I think many of us in the rest of New York State would feel happy without New York City, because they take the most of our tax dollars. And
I think that they give a lot of tax dollars too.
Oh yeah, no. If you actually take a look, it actually goes the other way. It's huge. It goes the other way.
I know a lot of them get tax breaks. You know, your Goldman Sachs and all these others, and even your Hemsley
organizations, and if you take a look at the one thing, I don't want to get into tax discussions because I'm really not knowledgeable there, but I think if you look at where money, as far as our money, why is our state in debt, where that money is used. You can do that with we can look at our budgets, since they're supposed to be online and all that stuff is there.
Mm-hmm.
We had a person go through it and show us several shocking things, which you can probably find in each of your states.
Like what?
Abuses of what I consider abuses of taxpayer dollars.
Like what?
Oh, so we have nice mountains.
Where? What? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what do you.
The things we were laughing at was expenses that were paid for skis. They were charging thousands of dollars, was $500 to $1,000 for a ski, when these particular skis can be bought for roughly $100. And these are high quality stuff that we're talking about. So the high quality stuff that they bought could be bought for 10 times less, is what we're talking about. There was a number of things like that, and we were just looking at things like that. But we're talking about for New York City, we looked at expenditures for various different things. You can actually break it down by the county.
Yeah, I'm lost. I mean, how's skis? What's the taxpayer money? I'm trying to catch that one.
Well, the high expense, again, it's taxpayer dollars. High expense, things that should not. If there's anything you can call me be a fiscal conservative. I think that when you are in government, you have to be extremely respectful of the money that comes from you. That's from anybody else whose money that is, because the person who's making the choices about the money, that money is not theirs to spend. It is the taxpayers' money they are spending. That is an incredible, huge difference. And unfortunately, we have too many politicians on every side of the aisle. It doesn't matter if you're, again, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, whatever you are, who have the opinion that they have a right to spend taxpayer dollars without thinking about the taxpayers' money. I mean, it is their money. So people should not, this is what it comes down to. If you can buy something, and I like what Mark is saying here, talk about the idiocy of the military. I still remember them saying they were buying toilets that would cost 50 grand or something like that. And Mark's right. Mark Stevens, I think.
Yeah.
So right. We all remember the insanity of stuff coming. I think the first time I saw something like that was in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Mind blown. It's the irresponsibility of people who are politicians who forget that it is simply this: the taxpayer dollars belong to the taxpayers. All right, we need to be extremely respectful of their money. We should not abuse that usage of that money. We should, if there's a way for us to be respectful, it's to make sure we get the right quality for the right buck and not be cheating the taxpayer.
Okay, but I'm still trying to figure out how New York is like the leech of the tax system. I'm still trying to figure out.
I'm looking. It's an incredible leech. In fact, that's one of the reasons why there's a big movement. But it can't go anyplace. The people who are running the movement don't understand that there has to be a constitutional amendment to the U.S. Constitution, not to the New York State Constitution. I've had a lot of discussions to find out my own perspective on this with constitutional scholars and with people who are scholars on New York State law, and that's what my conclusion comes to. While I like the idea, we just don't have the ability to do that.
Okay, so we touched on jihad. We touched on the coronavirus. Let's touch on some of the politics and of what's going on. So we have two people running for. Well, we have more than two people, but we only have two major political parties. So those are the only two that we really look at. What are your thoughts on both?
I would like to see the Democrats have a decent candidate. I would love to see the Democrats come up with a decent candidate. Right now, they have a man who said he's being tested constantly, cognitively getting tested. There was a challenge by President Trump to say, get tested. He's had one, and dared him to compare statistics. And Biden said he's being tested constantly. That kind of concerns me. What reason would they have to test you constantly for your cognitive ability? I'm a special education teacher. All right. I retired from putting over about 30 years in education. So believe me, I can tell you that something. I mean, we know that Biden had a test after he had his traumatic brain injury surgery. Okay, and sorry, his doctor came out when there was first. I think it was traumatic brain injury. He had surgery on his brain, is what I should say, not TBI, but he had brain surgery 30 years ago, and the doctor came out when something happened when the first time he did something. Oh my gosh, this would have been back in, oh my gosh, September, maybe August, something like that, where he said something. People were questioning, is he okay?
But people, you know what? But there's a lot that. Okay, so and what's your thought on the Republican candidate?
He is not a conservative. Trump is not a conservative by any means. He is what people would call a pragmatist or a realist. I went and evaluated candidates and their plans when they were running for government and when he ran the first time. And I found something interesting. Out of all the candidates, Democrat, Republican, this is when the primaries were going on. Out of all the candidates, everybody's plan, Hillary's, every plan that we had that was proposed for finances, there was only one person who proposed a plan that penalized corporations, and that was Trump. His penalty was the goal was to keep business in the United States. He talked about everybody, every single person, every single candidate made that plan, but none of them proposed a penalty for the corporations. So I'm looking at a guy who understands how corporations run, how they think. I want a guy who's actually has a record for achieving the lowest unemployment rates for several groups of people. I want a guy who's actually established one of the incredible. I'm looking at those things. I mean, what has been done? What has been promised hasn't been kept.
So let me go back and before I forget all the different points that you just made. Okay, number one, he was saying that he want to keep businesses in America and bring business back, but yet his products are being made outside of America. When is he going to bring his back? That's my first question, because we have to lead by example.
I like that.
Hold on, we have to lead by example. We cannot say bring products back to the United States except for mine. That's like you telling your kids, don't smoke, don't do drugs, and don't drink. But I'm going to do all those things, but you just don't do it.
I agree with you.
We have to lead by example. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, you were questioning, Joe Biden's, I don't know what to call it.
Ability.
But
I have a father entering the first stages of dementia.
But we could say
doing the same things as my father.
But here's the thing, but we could pretty much say the same thing for President Trump, because he would say something today and then turn around and say, I didn't say that. And it's like, dude, you said it. You were right there. It was live on Fox.
You can do that with you can take that kind of a statement from any politician and say that.
But see, here's
Kerry is famous for it. Probably the most famous out of all the politicians. But that's not a sign of dementia.
No, I didn't say it's a sign of dementia, but it's also a sign of I trust what's coming out this man's mouth.
That's an issue of trust, and I'll agree with you that that's a trust issue. There's a difference between cognitive ability and trust issues.
Okay, now we're looking at a guy that is president of the United States, and his whole thing was supposed to be he was going to make America great. By the way, America was already great. I don't think they needed him to make it great. There was never a time that America was not great.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for saying that.
But seriously, there was never a time it wasn't greater than it is now, than it was before he came along. Because the thing is, we got to remember, at the time that he came along and said he wanted to make it great again, before that we were only getting better as other people for all of us. The only one that if we were to go back to let's say we go back to the way it was in the 50s, At that point, it would only be great for one particular set of the population. And that one particular set of the population would be white males.
You're giving the perspective of what I would call an American who hasn't done much traveling. And I love that. Because yes, if you go to other countries and you look at how they perceived us before this happened.
Before what happened?
We had a president during the last president before him was going around apologizing for America every place. We had no respect.
So you're saying, wait, hold on, wait a second. So you're saying then that that other countries respect us now more than they did before?
Oh yes, without a doubt. Yeah, even before Obama, we had, going back as far as Nixon, we had people making trade agreements that were favorable to the other countries instead of our country. All right.
Okay, so tell me, which countries are these that respect us more now than they did before?
That's an easy list. You can pick up. You ready? You can start with China, because China now has been warring with us over trade. Now, before they're telling us what it's going to be, and we would just simply accept it. Now I'm going to pick you can pick a large number of other countries.
Like which ones?
Same exact issue. We can use the example of NAFTA. Now NAFTA is officially dead, as I believe as of last week. I have to double check that. When NAFTA happened, we had a Kodak was still thriving here in Rochester, and they were starting to build a plant in, I believe it was Medina, somewhere there, and they had plans for it. However, when NAFTA passed, this again is under Clinton, they decided to build their plant in Mexico. So again, to me, that's lack of. This is our government, our people in our country deciding to build in other places and giving them advantages. What happened is, again, it was supposed to be freight. It didn't benefit America. It took jobs away from Americans. So I'm looking at those things. Other countries that decide, you can go, there's a huge long list of differences in the way trade is now being carried out in the United States.
So you're telling me then that our new deals are screwing everybody else, and they're respecting us because we're screwing them.
No, in fact, I want you to think about it this way. If you are, you know what the barter system is. You go to a place and you make a deal. Usually, you both work out well. Now, let me ask you this: if you're the seller, if you have the deal, would you want to lose money on the deal?
Okay, but you're not answering my question. Because from what you're saying, hold on. From what you're saying when we redid the deals with China, now we're literally screwing China because we're getting the better end of the deal and they're getting
actually, that's not
and they're respecting us. So is it that we're getting the better deal or they're getting the better deal? I'm trying to figure.
It's almost to the middle. That's what we're trying. That's what bartering achieves. You get them to a middle usually, where you're both happy. Correct?
But here's the thing. I was Googling. I don't see where NAFTA ended. But here's the thing. One of the things, I have traveled outside this country, and I'm yet to find a country that right now thinks we're better off than we were before. And and I have viewers that are from other countries. I have viewers from literally all over the world. I have viewers from Europe. I have viewers from Africa, from the Caribbean, from Iceland. I mean, I'm like, really? I mean, I have viewers from all over. And
you'll find people in those groups. We have the same problems here. We have people that we call never Trumpers. We have people that don't. They start with an opinion and they don't go anyplace.
Well, the same could be said for the Trumpers.
People that have limited opinion when you don't actually explore everything.
But the same could be said for the Trumpsters that they just they're like a pit bull. They'll grab onto a bone and you can't tell them anything else. Because I'm going to tell you, one of the main things is that no, other countries don't respect us more than they did before. That's number one. Hold on. Wait a second. Remember, I control the mic. I can mute. Hold on. Let me finish. Other countries don't respect us more than they did before. As a matter of fact, you have other countries that are now looking at us in disgrace, really, because of a lot of the things that's happening here and a lot of the things that's happening with our government. We have a guy that people that sit on his cabinet don't even respect him. The people, as they leave, they start to tell you how it was in the White House and things like that. So it's like, okay, I don't see him as being the businessman. I mean, and before, when we didn't know any better, yes, we thought, okay, wow, Trump is like the greatest businessman. But Trump makes a lot of money off of failed businesses. It's just that he doesn't have to pay back the money on those failed businesses that he get when he files bankruptcy and things like that. If I did that, of course I could be a billionaire, which, by the way, makes me start to wonder, hey, maybe I should do a couple businesses, take out a couple loans, file bankruptcy and not pay the money back. And then next thing you know, you guys are gonna be like, hey, Steve for president, But honestly, let's be for real. Let's call it what it is. This guy did not make America great again, because America was already great before he came along. The only thing that he wanted to that he was impressing, and I have a lot of friends because I used to travel a lot for work in Nashville, Louisville, and places like that, and a lot of those people would tell you that really, and these are white guys that consider themselves that are proud to wear the label of redneck, and they would sit and they would tell you that he only wants to make it great again for white people, which is basically what he's saying.
It's a redneck for you. It's a redneck for you.
But
redneck, I consider them racist. If you're gonna say, you might as well just say they're racist. They believe what they want. They're gonna put the white person first, and they don't care about anybody.
Right, but again, these are the and they're telling you what exactly what this guy wants.
See, they're going from a limited mindset.
Okay, so what's your mindset then?
I would say my mindset. I probably read between 100 and 200 news stories from various different sources a day. I read various things like New York Times articles, I can't even tell you how many different news sources I take in a day. I try to evaluate the value of those news sources and how much they actually tell you. And I look, when I find something in one news source, there are certain news sources I like, but I don't like. Let's pick on Breitbart. I like Breitbart. Here's the problem with Breitbart. Breitbart, a lot of times, basically is repeating what somebody else said. So I go back and I find the original source and I go from there. So that's one of the reasons I don't like Breitbart in general. What they do, and I get angry when they don't, which most reliable news sources do, is cite the original document. So I'll go back to the original document, find out what I can. In some cases, I will call the reporter, the original reporter, and ask them, is this, to verify something or something that else. We have to start doing that as regular Americans. We can't just trust our news sources anyplace. So picking up a news source, no matter what it is, like I said, there are things I like and don't like about Breitbart. That is that they generally copy or repeat what other people say. And to me, that's not a real news source. That's what I would call an aggregate.
But isn't it also true that a lot of times what they repeat is not accurate?
No, I haven't. What I found, you find the original source.
No. I didn't ask you about the original source. I said what they repeat. So
I haven't found an article with that. I've found several claims when I've gone when I started looking at that. Let's see, when was I doing that last? I think I saw several claims about 2 or 3 years ago about that, and I went back on. They were citing 2 or 3 news articles that I was looking at. When I went back and read what it might have been WashPo that I was actually saying that. I have to go back and again, this is 2 or 3 years ago. When I went back and compared the two, I found, I believe it was WashPo. And I compared what the two were saying. There was a lot of misleading, it's not uncorroborated. It's like half truth. Half truth is my best way to put it. Okay. When I read all the statements from both, because I put them side by side to find out which is true. is this something I enjoy to do, which is one of the reasons I'm a research writer. I'm stupid that way. I love that kind of research. When you put them side by side, you find here's the right term: omission of fact. The persons who were saying, which I believe it was Washpo, were using omission of fact. That's a dangerous thing. So they'll say XXX is true, but they leave out that the person also said something else that negates what they just claimed. So they gave you a portion of what was true to make their statement that the other person was lying. They didn't tell you the entire truth. In general,
so they basically trumped it then, because I mean that's basically what he does.
A lot of politicians, lawyers are masters of this in the courtroom. Businessmen are masters of it in order to do sales. So anybody who does sales are masters of getting facts.
And in this case, this businessman is a master of it as a president. He gives you the half truth, and then
there's a difference between a half truth and an omission of fact. That's what you have to get at. A half truth.
Now we're splitting hairs.
Yeah, I only have to because when I've had to write, I've done some very definite things on this. Omission of fact is purposeful, purposely withholding evidence. Let's put it that way. Half truths are not always purposeful. That's the difference. It's a small piece of difference. That's the only reason I used one is a legal term, the other is not, and that's the other reason I use that term. It's scary. Start to look at when you get these things. Go back. I do that. I don't just accept that someone tells me something is wrong. Go and find out. Go back to the original. Find both sides. Compare them. That's what I do.
Okay.
Again, I don't like Breitbart because it tends to be more of what I consider, I guess the right term is aggregate. I'm using, sometimes I use them to find the sources that are not in English. And that's where I'll use that. I like the original documents. And like I said, I like to call the journalist or that wrote the original articles when I find something interesting. That to me is interest, just to communicate and get the straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, what they're saying is important.
All right, we're gonna have to agree to disagree because I don't see where the articles in Breitbart, and I've looked at it before because I have a coworker who like you likes to read Breitbart all the time, and I looked at the website before and I didn't see where
side by side. That's what I had to do.
I didn't see where I got the substance from it that I thought I would. But
like I said, it's not my favorite. I don't have one right now because I'm reading so many different news sources. Breitbart just is one of the things I thought of. I do not have anything close to a favorite right now.
But the other thing too is that we're going to have to disagree on is, you said you're a special ed teacher. I think you should actually see some things in this president that should be familiar as a special ed teacher.
I definitely saw narcissism in the last person. I had a student diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and the last president did. This president, I haven't.
So you think President Obama was a narcissist, but you don't think that this president has any mental issues?
I'm saying now, listen closely to what I'm saying. I am not saying he is not a narcissist. There is a difference between NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, which is a disorder listed in the DSM. All right. Now, narcissism as a whole is not listed as a mental illness. So I'm not saying he's not a narcissist. Understand that. You want to get somebody to run for office who doesn't think he's going to do the best job for you? Or better yet, do you want somebody running for office who doesn't want to think about his legacy?
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Looking at this president now and looking at the way things are right now, do you think he made America great? Did he
I think
fulfill? Did he fulfill his promise and make it great again?
is I will say he did unite the country far more than the past president.
So you
He
think the country is more united now than under Obama?
Oh gosh, yes. Obama
Wow.
was the president of division. He's the one that put the black man against the police force. He's the one who actually held who came out and said the police acted stupidly before even listening to what happened. He just made a decision without even getting all the
You don't
facts.
think, so you don't think that there was an issue between the police force and the black community before Obama came along?
Not like this. Not before him. No.
Let me tell you, I've been a black man for 50 years, and there's
Not. It's not even close before that.
and there's been, yes, that issue's been around long before
Not,
then,
well, I'm not saying
long before I was born. The
he's magnified it. Is what I'm trying to
no,
tell you.
I'll tell you what the issue was. The issue was that during his presidency, a lot of the technology took leaps and bounds. So we started seeing more videos. We started seeing more of these things coming out. But before this was happening and it just wasn't being seen on videotape. We will see more on videotape because people are videotaping and they're posting them on social media. But I can go back and I can tell you stories upon stories upon stories of the same thing happening. You could go back even to the movie Mississippi Burning, and that was a true story. And as a matter of fact, go even further back than that, but you could go back to that where it was they killed the guys and they covered it up. So we could argue on that, but I don't think it's because of Obama that made this happen. I
You're
think it's
talking
because we're seeing it more.
about Democratic-run governments during Mississippi burning.
Listen, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Definitely,
I'm going to tell you something.
the creators of the Jim Crow
I'll tell
laws
you something. Hold on,
opposed to civil rights. So
Paul.
yes,
Paul, hold on. I'm going to tell you something. When a cop is behind me and he turns on his lights, I really don't care if he's Democrat, Republican, or independent. All I
doesn't
care
matter.
about is that he doesn't have an itchy trigger finger. I really don't care what his political views are. So the thing is, political views and things of that sort are luxuries that some people, oh, well, well, maybe the Democrat, the liberal, the. Most people want to survive. Most people want to live. Most people want the same equality. Most people want to be able to come home at the end of the night. Police officers and citizens, black and white, everyone wants the same thing. The difference is when I am not given the luxury of that because of the color of my skin or because I'm an immigrant or because of whatever. Because the thing is, when it comes down to it, we want to keep saying police against the black community or whatever. The problem is we have to look at the things on top that are making these things happen. Mass incarceration. There's money
You know,
behind
plans, all these right
it.
planned, right?
That- but
These were all planned. This was all set up. You can do some simple research and you can discover that
of
they
course,
were just looking for catalyst. That's
of
all.
course,
It
here's the
didn't
thing.
matter what it was. It could have been anything. It could have been, but Antifa, BLM were coordinated, and their goals. What they say, their whole goal behind everything is socialism and communism. They come out and tell everybody they're trained Marxists. They all do that.
No,
Okay.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Wait,
BLM.
hold on. Wait, Paul, I muted you. Hold on. Let me talk for a second. Hold on. So here's the thing. Um, First off, what we're looking at now and Black Lives Matter is, yes, we changed the name, but it's the same thing we've been asking for years. Whether we called it the Black Panther Party, whether we called it whatever party, we've been asking the same thing for years. We've been asking for equal education. We've been asking for equal housing, all these different things. But when I go to
Something happened. You're paused. I can't see you. Crazy. I don't know what happened here. I'm guessing something happened. I don't know if I'm live. I'm guessing not. Well, if I am, it's insane. Black Lives Matter. You can pick up videos that show where the leaders of Antifa.
Here we go.
Are you back?
Are you there?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry about that, and I gotta apologize to the viewers as well because we have a storm brewing here, and it just knocked out the power. So I don't have. I had to switch to my phone. Let me show you guys the storm. Hold on. So there's a storm here, so it knocked out the power. So I had to switch to the phone. But anyhow, so let me finish tell you what I was saying. I think a lot of the issues that we have, yes, we may put politics or whatever to it. We may give it whatever name we want to give it. Yeah, this light is still on because it's running from my laptop. But the what do you call it? The truth of the matter is a lot of this is just funded by public interest, by these groups, these things like Geo and all these others that make money off of people being incarcerated. And there's so many different issues that we can look at, more than we can cover in this one in this 1 hour conversation, by the way, which is up now because I've got to switch back to get back to work. Even though there's no power, I still gotta, my boss watches the show. He's gonna be like, Steve, what are you doing? But anyhow, so back to what I was saying. I think that what we need to do is we actually have to start looking at people as an equal, and we have to start looking at people as just that, as a person. We can no longer just sit and say, I'm better than this person because of the color of my skin or because
Nobody
of
should be doing that. You're right. Nobody should be. I like Dr. Martin Luther King's statements. I mean, wanted to go beyond the color of the skin. He wouldn't want anybody to get a job based on the color of their skin or anything. The idea was to achieve the ability for people to be judged by their character. That
And
was
you think that's where we are now in this country?
I've actually sat down with my friends, a lot of my friends, and talked with them about do you feel that you've had racism expressed against you? I had 2 out of all of them say that they've felt some. My students,
And these are your black friends you're saying.
My students would have told you that they feel racism when they go in a store. They feel like they're followed more. I have a community where I used to live that used to follow Black people more. My issue with that was interesting. I actually proposed a survey to them. I just asked them to answer yes. What do you think? So on one side of the survey, I put down things like we did this the year after we did 2002. This survey. So I said it's 9/11, and somebody is bowing down and doing an Islamic prayer, and they're going to get on the plane in front of you. Do you get on? And then on the other side, this is the results that really shocked me. They said yeah, they're getting on the plane. Then on the other side, I put down a situation. So you're a white guy, you're driving through a Black neighborhood, and the police pull you over. Is this right or wrong? They're pulling you over because you're a white guy going through a Black neighborhood. And then the same thing, I put you're a Black guy going through a white neighborhood, you get pulled over. Is it right? And in both cases, my students, I'd say 98% of them gave me a shocking answer. They said if you're a white guy going through my neighborhood and it's nighttime, I think that was the other thing I had said. It was nighttime. They said if you're a white guy going through my neighborhood, you're coming to buy drugs, I want the police to pull you over. And they said the other thing is they said if you're a Black guy going through the white neighborhood, chances are they're coming to rob you. And this is what my students said. And I'm like shocked. I did not expect that answer. There's black people who lived in my neighborhood. It might have been mostly white at the time. I could not understand that answer. And this is from teenagers. Granted, maybe they don't have a big enough view to see what was wrong about that, but.
All right, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to actually have to pick this up another time when, number one, when I have power back.
Yeah.
And number two, when when I have more time. But for right now, we'll just agree to disagree on some of our views. But some of the views are good. But here's the thing. I still think that we actually have to respect each other as individuals and as people.
Oh, definitely.
We cannot just keep saying, we can't come up with cute ways of calling racism something else. We can't come up with cute ways of saying, we can't. We have to stop with the cute ways of justifying racism and justifying all these other things. So basically, I'm gonna have you back on the show again, and definitely we'll chat some more about some of the views. But I definitely gotta run. But we would talk later on. Okay.
Okay. God bless.
All right. Thanks. I'll talk to you later. God bless. All right, guys. So basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut the show here, and hopefully we get things back up and running, and we'll go from there. All righty. So look out for each other. Look out for do a random act of kindness. Definitely do that, and I'll tell you why. Because one of these days you might be the one that need that random act of kindness. All right. So let's see. Let me try to figure out how to change this on my phone. Because I'm on the phone now, I'm using the phone. This is an awesome program, by the way. You guys are gonna have to take my masterclass. I'm working on a masterclass right now on how you can create your own show or your own podcast. So we'll work on that. Anyhow, so guys, thank you very much. For watching. Thanks for the comments. Make sure you share this. And if you guys have any views on anything that we talked about today, drop them in the comment section below. All right. Thanks again. Talk to you guys later. See you tomorrow. Peace.